go here to Alan to start us off. He goes, chances King or Cease getting moved now with all the injuries in baseball? Padres looking like a third-place team.
Well, Padres, I think, have the ability to be a second-place team in the National League West. I think Arizona's pretty good. Arizona's really deep in pitching. Padres a little bit thin. I've been taking such crap on social media because one show I talk about the Padres have solved this, and somebody reads between the lines like I'm saying the Padres are going to beat the Dodgers. That's not the case. The Padres solved their pitching thing by getting Nick Pivetta from Boston. So the Padres are rock solid 4 starters. That doesn't mean they're going to beat the Dodgers, but somebody reacts, it's just hammering me. And the next week I'm saying there's holes in this batting order. It's been a lousy spring. And a guy comes back and he sends me a note and says, 1 week you're telling us pennant contender. Next week you're telling us we're in the dumper. No, I'm taking it week by week in the storylines. They solved the pitching crisis at number 4 by getting Pivetta. They're not hitting worth a lick, and they haven't solved who's in left, who's my catcher, and what's my bench bunch look like with 10 days to go. Those are the topics this week compared to where we were a week ago. It's not that I'm saying order your World Series tickets, or I'm not saying they're in last place. I'm just putting topics on the table or the opinion, the story we have to deal with this week. Your friends, your fans are just absolutely amazing, but that's okay.
It's on Instagram, and that's where all the back and forth goes, and it's especially a lot of like Dodger fans who are just giving you crap.
Again.
But it's good. I mean, it's all part of the fun of all of this. But you put yourself out there, one man's opinion. So, of course, you're going to get reaction. That's what it's all about. That's
I don't think the Padres are going to trade either one of those guys. The Padres believe that they have the potential to forge their way into postseason and go deep. Got to stay healthy. I think the plus right now, very strong, 4-man rotation. I don't quite have an answer for the Suarez crisis, but I think they're deep in the bullpen. I think collectively that's a pretty good team, but they're not the Dodgers, and they're in the National League West, and that means second place, and get to October, and then you take your chances and see. Cannot afford any injuries. If they lose any of their 4 starters, they're in a real world of hurt because they don't have any depth behind them.
Well, they're taking 6 teams to the playoffs, right? And so you figure, there's like 7 really good teams. The Padres are one of those 7. So I think you could say they're going to make the playoffs reasonably. But let's just, the Dodger Invitational, it's going to be tough to win the division.
Okay, we move on.
We'll go here to Chris. He goes, Smacksaw and John, the Dodgers carry 25 players on their roster. How many translators are they allowed to carry? And will anyone have to begin the season interpreting in AAA?
Well, they sent Kim, the Korean second baseman shortstop, to AAA Oklahoma City already. They're working on his mechanics. It's going to take him some time to get used to this level of play and this level of pitching. He had a lot of problems with fastballs. Like I say, he hit only 207 in spring training, and they gave him a lot of ABs along the way. Actually, the roster it's 26 to start the season, not 25. And they brought 31. They were allowed to take 31 players to Japan. And on opening day Tuesday, they will declare who the 26 are that will be on the opening day, quote, active roster. So when you come over here, honk a horn, we'll let you in the gate. You can be with us at 3 a.m., have coffee and donuts and find out who the Dodgers declared as their top 26 players Tuesday when they play the Cubs.
This whole Hae-Sung Kim thing getting demoted to AAA Oklahoma, that's got to be like a pride thing. Here you are, a star in the Korean baseball. Hae-Sung Kim made the transition. And granted, his first year was it was tough for him.
Rocky.
And now, the other Kim player, Hae-Sung Kim, he can't pull it off. I mean, he's got to, be a little bit delicate there, emotionally, because he doesn't want to disappoint his fans in Korea.
True. But I think he understands there's an awful lot of talent on this roster.
Well,
look how many super utility guys they have on the Dodger roster. Here's the cultural shock. Do you think anybody speaks Korean in Oklahoma City?
Ooh. Yeah, they'll probably find some. There's a university just down the street there, so there's a little bit of that. But it's going to be fun. Dodgers, Cubs. I mean, it was great that the Padres are there, but I'm kind of happy the Padres have more of I feel like a normal spring training because the previous 2 years have been kind of weird. So let the Dodgers put on the frequent flyer miles, and we're going to find out really how good these guys are.
Oh, I think these guys are pretty good.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Okay, we move on. Thanks for the input, Chris.
Okay, here, go next to Callan. He goes, afternoon, gents. He goes, John, I'm going to keep asking about the Insiders Group happy hour is going to be held. And saw who wins the Central Division, the Jets, the Avs, the Stars. the finish is going to be crazy.
He's talking about National Hockey League, post trading deadline. Yeah, Winnipeg is loaded. Now, unless something happens from an injury standpoint, and they're just not a one-man team. Winnipeg is deep on their second and third lines, and then they went out and got some grit, and they got Hellebuck, who I think is just the hottest goaltender in the league. But Dallas went out, and Dallas got an accomplice to go with Jason Robertson. I mean, Dallas making that trade to get Renton from Carolina and then signing him. Colorado's retooled their roster. I think Colorado's still a little iffy in goal, but I think the Central Division is going to be really rugged. And by the way, Pacific Division, the Western Conference, NHL, take no prisoners. I still think Edmonton's going to be a force. Calgary is playing really well. Vancouver suddenly believes that maybe they're back into it, and the Kings have a lot of snipers and a lot of firepower. So I think the Western Conference of the NHL playoffs, those best-of-7 series, can be like a war.
Okay, well, I'm temporarily turning off hockey for the next 3 weeks because I've got March Madness basketball to focus on.
No can do. You got to balance it. Pay attention to the whole thing.
Yeah, and you do, which is amazing. I mean, you come in with all these notes. You cover everything. And by the way, Callan, on the whole happy hour thing, I want to do it. We just got to get Lee to want to do it too. And our schedules and personal lives have been a little weird, but I would love to get together and like do it on a Friday night and get a meet and greet with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. What could be better for sports fans?
Coming to talk to you. No. They just like me. They want to sit with you.
Yeah, no.
Yes, and I agree. We'll do it. John will buy the shots of Jack Daniels for everybody. Callum, thanks for being with us. Next one.
Okay, this is just a quick two-parter here real fast. And Blake says, love you, Saw. Go Rams, go.
Oh, I think the Rams have had a really good offseason, even with the minute number of guys that they've acquired. I mean, I like Cooper Kupp. I hope he gets signed into a good situation. I think he will. I'd love to see him come to the Chargers, but the price is going to have to be right. But I do think Devontae Adams is a better acquisition right now than having Cooper Kupp on the roster. So, the Rams just continue to do a good job, and going to get the Charger defensive tackle is huge. I think so. And they got the draft ahead of them, and they've done a great job from a player personnel standpoint. So front office there, Les Snead and those guys does not get enough credit. They've done a great job.
Well, I think there's a chance for them to win that division, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the Niners are coming back. The Cardinals are weird, or they're a mess. And what's the third team or the fourth team in there? It's the Seahawks. Yep. But you're not sure with Sam Darnold. So, yeah, this is the division for McVay to win.
And I think they got a lot of firepower, and they got a lot of talent. And all those young guys they drafted 2 years in a row all played last season in that push to go as deep as they did into the playoffs. Thanks, Blake.
Okay, keep on moving here. We'll go to Greg, and Greg says, hey, Lee, I think the AFC West potentially could have 4 current Hall of Fame head coaches. Is that possible in your estimation?
Tell you what, you got some smart guys here. I mean, Andy Reid is Andy Reid, a.k.a. next mail-in address will be Hall of Fame. No argument about the success of Jim Harbaugh. We know what Sean Payton is all about. And obviously, Pete Carroll's arrival in Vegas, I would think would have been a catalyst for better players to get there, but I haven't seen that. And that's the thing. The last 3 days, I've just had a hard time looking at my cheat sheet, my list, and saying, God, the Raiders have made some great advances here. I thought Tom Brady and Pete Carroll and John Spytek, the new general manager, that would have been a magnet for players, and they didn't sign any difference makers yet. And they got Geno Smith, who I don't think is a difference maker, quarterback. So, Raiders, they got a great coach. But
I think the magnet thing works like for Coach Prime at Colorado. But I don't think it works in the NFL. It's show me the money. I mean, that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And it just seems to me, I'm just guessing here, but the Brady and what's his name, Spytek, they've got a plan, and they got to let go. They got to purge a lot of guys that were unproductive and kind of just hit the reset button.
Yeah, but they got 4 starters on defense that said they wanted to resign, and they didn't sign any of them, and they all went.
Yeah, well, show me the money.
Not only now do you have a black void on the offensive side of the football, you got a lot of holes on the black side of the defense. Not with Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz and Christian Wilkins. Their front is good. Their back 7, they don't have any starters that are real established stars that side of the football.
But I do think Greg's right. I think all 4 of them are going to end up being Hall of Famers.
Oh, not a bad call. Not bad call. All right, thanks, Greg.
Okay, here's just a couple of quick ones. So this is from Anthony. He goes, ladies line, looking for Linda Welby's banker.
Linda was great. She's great to work with. I've worked with a lot of really cool people over the course of the years in radio.
Yeah, I mean, Linda Welby is interesting because one of my friends from college is a close friend of Linda Welby, and they both live in Point Loma together. So I see stuff about her on Facebook, but it sounds like she's having a really good life with her family.
Yeah, she worked hard, and she overcame some tough health issues and got healthy. And the cool thing, she walked down that hallway with attitude.
Right on.
She'd tell you what she thought with attitude. Period, exclamation point. This is what Linda Welby thinks.
But she was she the producer for Billy Ray and Kaplan?
Yeah, and then she kind of became third wheel in, and had fun with her. And yeah, she was great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought she was tremendous.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep on moving. And Tyler just gave us a ton here. I'm just gonna start with one of these. We'll start with the Eagles. And he says, because the Eagles understand financial efficiency, which is exactly what you were talking about with the 49ers. You can't run it back with the same guys. You've got to continue to get younger and cheaper.
But do you do it in a mass defection? That's the thing. I mean, I understand maybe you let go one guy, but, they lost both Josh Sweet and they lost Milton Williams. I would have thought they would have been able to keep at least one of those young guys. I understand Darius Slay. That's a veteran. Therefore, he was making a lot of money, etc. But boy, it's an awful lot of guys gone from that side of the football. That being said, Harry Roseman has done a really good job in terms of player acquisitions, and we'll see what else they do in the draft, or maybe there's going to be some more trades along the way.
Well, Tyler's got like 5 or 6 of these on different teams. We'll try to weave them in if we have time. Let's go here to the Osiders. Chargers went from paying Staley $4 million per year to paying Harbaugh $16 million per year plus new coaching staff. Is it possible cheap Spanos is trying to recoup the money by not spending up to the cap?
Well, he's going to have to spend up to the cap because there was a floor to spending in the National Football League, but he had $93 million when this whole thing started after they parted ways with Joey Bosa. At the end of the day, they got needs, and they've got a really good young quarterback, and now they got a heavy-duty running back in Najee Harris, but that doesn't mean crap because that offensive line is still there, and that offensive line didn't block to protect the quarterback and didn't block by the way, they have not re-signed J.K. Dobbins either. So, yes, you got Najee Harris, but there's no holes because that offensive front, they didn't solve that during the first 3 days of free agency. Maybe there's things coming in the draft, and, they do know how to draft quality players, but God, I would have thought they would have been more active with name players rather than role players and no-name players that they've gotten so far. I don't think they've done anything in free agency that kind of excites me.
Just talking about Spanos, so we've always talked about him as a cheapskate. And so now he's in LA. He's probably got more revenue coming in. I mean, because they could charge more ticket prices, and they're still selling out SoFi, aren't they?
Yeah, to all Packer fans, Steeler fans.
Everybody's money is green.
Yep.
So, but it does make me wonder though, like why, wasn't it Goodell that was giving him pressure? They said, you got to spend money on a legit coach this year.
Yeah, he did. I was told that Goodell told Spanos, we got you into LA. We propped you up in LA. When your stadium measure failed in LA, we negotiated the deal to get you into the Kroenke Dome. You need to do a better job running this franchise. And obviously, when that got Harbaugh, and Harbaugh had a good season. Luckily, they played a really substandard schedule. I'm sorry. They did win 11 games, but there's 7 losses. They got punched in the mouth by every good team they played.
Yeah, they did.
So let's be realistic here. And now it's lesser roster this afternoon than it was the last day of the season. And they had $93 million of cap space. So I don't buy it right now. There's still time to trade. There's still time, obviously, in the draft to get the right kids and hit the jackpot, have another good draft. But it's not the same football team.
Now, weren't there like financial problems with the Spanos family and people suing people? And
his sister, Dia.
And there was a lot of debt or something like that.
Yeah, Dean had to keep taking out loans. And I think they're probably more profitable now. Dia sued. It's a misappropriation of money. The guy's just a bad businessman, which I firmly believe. They eventually found a buyer to buy her out. It's the owner of the Detroit Pistons bought Dia Spanos' shares, but he's a silent partner. He's not making any decisions in the operation of the Charger team. But Dia got her money, and that segment of the family was moved out. They're in a good situation with Harbaugh, and I think a good player personnel guy in Ortiz, and they got a quarterback. But you got to get more players around that quarterback right now.
What's the deal? Alex Spanos names one kid Dean and the other one Dia, like DEA, right?
Yeah, that was her name.
So, I mean, there's got to be some significance to DEA within the Spanos family.
I have no interest in the Spanos family tree, amongst other no interest in anything Spanos is resolved to.
Okay, let's keep moving. We'll go here to Showtime LA. He goes, hey, Lee, I'm kind of worried about Blake Treinen. He has an 11 ERA through 5.2 innings. Having to go multi-innings in the postseason is catching up to him, I think.
It's kind of hard to say because he's also had some good outings in the spring. But remember, I'd be a little bit concerned because they're down 2 relievers. They're going to start the season on the disabled list. Evan Phillips is not going to be there to start. And then who's the other one that had the forearm problem? Michael Kopech. They're throwing bullpens, but they're not ready to start the season. So they're going to be down 2 relief pitchers to start, but they do have this myriad of other groups of guys there that'll try to get them through. I have not heard word one that Treinen is having health problems. So therefore, maybe it's just bad outings in the spring and they'll dial it in. But they do have Alex Vessier. They've got other closers and setup guys. Kirby Yates is part of that equation. So, I mean, they are really deep in relief pitchers.
They got all-stars in every roster slot.
Including the guys on the DL.
Yeah, but, Treinen is a special pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and his ball moves very different than a lot of other players. So I wish the guy well, but I'm not, breaking out the violin for the Dodgers right now.
Okay, let's move on. A couple more before we go to social media.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. And he goes, Lee, do you think this will be the year the McSorley curse on Canada ends, like Winnipeg perhaps? Or do the Jets have no chance in Hellebuyck? Was it Hellebuyck?
No, Hellebuyck is the cornerstone goaltender.
Okay, see, I'm a hockey novice.
Rookie.
Yes, I am.
Connor Hellebuyck, if you get a hot goaltender in the playoffs, that carries you. But Winnipeg is really deep. Winnipeg is more than Shoffley. It's more than Kyle Connor. I mean, it's Gabe Velarde. They are 3.5 lines deep of guys who can score goals. And now, obviously, the trade deadline, they added grit. They added a gritty winger, which I thought they lacked. They added a gritty player on defense. I think Winnipeg is a real dangerous team to play. Granted, Edmonton is Edmonton with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, but Edmonton's got problems. Their goaltending, Stuart Skinner, is not the same as it's been in the past. LA Kings, to me, are scary. They're not scoring goals right now, but the Kings, I think you got to pay attention to. Vancouver and Calgary. Calgary's young. Vancouver thinks they've got enough. I don't see it. I don't think they have enough goal scoring at all, and they've had injuries in goals. So, but right now, Winnipeg is just, they're far beyond better than anybody on the Western Conference of the NHL. And as long as there's nobody who goes down in the playoffs, I think Winnipeg's a real deal. And that'd be phenomenal. The interesting thing, I thought about this during the week. A year ago this time, one of the topics we were talking about? Small market Canada, Winnipeg in trouble. They're struggling to get 13,000 in the building.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about that. Yeah.
It's a small regional franchise in Winnipeg. Yeah, it's the only thing in Manitoba, but Manitoba is a farming province. And look where they are now. They have the best hockey team in the National Hockey League. I mean, what a job that management team has done. And now Winnipeg is a hot ticket.
Yeah.
In 1 year.
Well, I'm happy for those guys. And you have a relationship with the Winnipeg folks, and they all come on our show. So, yeah, good on Winnipeg. I'm rooting for them. But, this is a little bit of a tangent. All this Canada, USA stuff that's going on right now. And the Canada has a new prime minister. And he basically said, we're going to fight this whole thing. And he went on to say, because, in hockey, we'll win. And I was thinking about this curse, because like Canada hasn't won the cup in a long time, but he was clearly referring to the Four Nations.
Yeah. And you didn't correctly word it, because I heard the speech, because the wife is Canadian.
Oh yeah.
And I heard the speech of, we don't lose. We will stand up for Canada. We don't lose in hockey either.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. You got it nailed. So, yeah, it's weird, though, that curse has lasted. It's been, since the turn of the century?
Yep. No. Well,
wasn't like in the 1990s?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But there's so many great players have come from abroad. It's a global game. Everybody's got access to talent, and there's so many stars that we've developed. U.S. hockey has developed stars, and then we got everybody who came from Russia, and everybody came from Europe. The Scandinavian countries. So many great players in the league. So everybody's got access to these.
Yeah, but Canadian hockey fan is probably damn it, we invented this sport.
Don Cherry is apoplectic. Okay, we move on. A couple more here before we get to social media.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of people, new folks here, or people that haven't been here in a while. This is Josh. This is a new guy. I hope the reason the Chargers are not spending in free agency is because they're putting together a major trade draft package.
Well, they drafted really well last season, and they do have draft picks. So we'll just see if they can hit the jackpot and get 3 or 4 really quality players, because they wound up, I think, with 3 or 4 starters this past year. But that being said, they got a problem at center and at both guard positions, and they've not addressed it. I do like Najee Harris. I think that's a tough guy running back who's a heavy-duty, durable guy. He's not the explosiveness of J.K. Dobbins, does not have the injury history that Gus Edwards had. Najee Harris is a really good football player. Now, they signed him in a 1-year deal worth, I want to say, about $9 million, which is, that's pretty pricey. But they're not going to be able to run the football if they don't fix this offensive line problem inside, and they still got to protect that quarterback. And by the way, maybe it's coming in the draft. I don't like their wide receiver core. Mike Williams is okay, but I like Josh Palmer better than like an aging Mike Williams with an injury history there too. So we'll see. I mean, this roster's not set. There's still more transactions to occur.
Well, when you were blasting out, 176 transactions,
yes,
and the Chargers missed out on a lot of guys, and we were wondering where they're going to spend the money. And then we thought, okay, maybe they're getting guys in the draft. But then I had forgotten about this, the trade draft pick, package deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd imagine they're having those conversations
sure.
now, and where are the Chargers in the draft? They're somewhere in the middle, right?
22nd.
22nd. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what kind of a pack would they be able to trade up?
Yeah, if you take my 22nd plus a 3rd round pick and get me into the top 10. Although to go from 22 to 10, that's a pretty big jump. A lot of teams don't do that.
Or would they do the opposite and flip down, to a lower, like to the not have a 1st round pick and get another high price veteran?
Well, that or trade out of 22 and get a 2nd and a 3rd, which gives you multiple 2s, multiple 3s. But the difference between a 1st round pick and a mid-2nd and a mid-3rd, talent-wise, pretty different.
Oh yeah, obviously. So to be a fly on the wall in that conference room with the whiteboard and their plan A, B, and C, that'd be really fun.
Concur. All right, thanks. Hope you become a regular, Josh. Tell your friends. Let's move on here.
Okay, let's go to another new guy here. Dan in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Suarez has been awful.
Something's not right. I hope he does not have arm problems, but his location. I think the number I wrote about it on my website. If you just go check my best 15 minutes in sports, I think he's only pitched 3 1/3 innings so far this spring. He's been knocked around. He pitched 5 times, been knocked out 3 of the 5 times he's pitched. I think in 3 innings, he's given up 8 runs, 10 hits, I think 4 walks. He's just kind of been battered. Now, I don't know if he's experimenting with stuff. There's no indication that he's hurt, but boy, he's not right now. And this is supposed to be your all-star closer.
I was watching one of the games like a few days ago, and I think Scanlon was talking about it, how he's had to rework his mechanics so his upper half and his bottom half are more tightly synchronized. And they were slightly off last year, and they've been able to kind of fix it. And when they do, the fastball has a lot more life. And it makes me wonder, because remember he threw like 70 fastballs in a row.
Yeah.
Like, was that last year or the year before last? Because when it's working, it's almost unhittable. So when it's sort of an average 98 mile an hour fastball, they're going to hit it, especially if they know it's coming, because his off speed wasn't really developed.
Yeah. He's had stretches where he's had his 2nd and 3rd pitches have been pretty dynamic. And he's had these other stretches where he doesn't control them and has become just a fastball guy. I think what worries me, I think there's probably truism that there's a flaw. That's what the entire offseason is, that you're working on that. It's not like he doesn't pick up a baseball in November and December. They do all this stuff at these pitching academies to work on the flaws. He's got a flaw with 10 days to go in the season. He still hasn't solved it. That's a warning sign to me. That's a problem.
It is, but he came, he wasn't a highly drafted guy. He came through the back channels.
He earned his way here.
And he earned it. But yeah. So hopefully his pass isn't catching up with him. Hopefully he can figure this out, because when he's rolling, he's good.
We move on.
Let's go to XX Revolution. Vladimir Guerrero, not even taking $500 million, and most likely probably not returning back to the Jays after this season. Jays want to spend less and get decent for less, like 2015 and 17.
It's a problem with Guerrero because they offered him significant money and he said no. He wanted a 14-year deal, no deferred money, full no trade clause, 14 years. It would have taken him to age 39. I wouldn't give Vlad Guerrero a contract through age 39. Look how big he is. Sometimes he looks pretty portly to me. So what's he going to be like at age 32, 33 in terms of physical abilities? What's going to be like at age 38, 39? I think that's why Toronto just said, no, we're not going to give you a contract that guarantees all those dollars till age 39. You want to do a 7-year deal? We'll pay a state-of-the-art $50 million per year, but we're not going to do this to age 39. That's the big issue. He'll go on the open market and you'll probably get it. I don't know that he'll get a 14-year contract from anybody else because I'm sure the Cubs or the Red Sox are the same opinion. We're not doing this contract going to pay you to age 39.
It's too bad Peter Seidler's not still alive.
Yeah.
He was the one giving out those long-term deals. Yeah, if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm not doing that. But you can't blame him for trying. Because that's the kind of contract that Manny Machado has, that Xander Bogaerts has, and he can make a case for it. And yeah, he is, he's a little more chunky. I think that's why he's playing first rather than third.
I think I see him. I think of Cecil Fielder.
Yeah, or Pablo Sandoval.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep on going. And another one from Tyler, which I thought was fun. He goes, you guys are complete nerds about sports, and I respect it.
Oh, we are not nerds. We know what we know, and we have opinions about what we know. I apologize in advance. We do sports talk the way it should be done. It's been pretty successful. That's why you're hooked on this podcast. Thanks, Ty.
Yeah. Tyler had all those other comments too. And by the way, here we go. Richard, he says, will the NCAA stop giving special treatment to teams from bigger conferences, robbing more deserving teams like USD who have had better record and earned a higher seed?
So you're talking about UCSD, not USD.
He must be.
Yeah. No, well, they win the Big West. They earn their way in. Now, if there are some shockers along the way, then the teams that are on the bubble, that's a problem. If a top seed, which had a good season, gets knocked out in their finals of the conference tournament, and somebody comes out of nowhere and wins a conference tournament, well, that top team in that conference will probably still get a spot, which takes away one of the lower spots for somebody like UCSD. But I don't think it's a problem because I think the Tritons are going to win via the Big West, and then they'll get chosen. Might be a 10 seed, might be 11 seed. We'll go from there.
Yeah, well, this is why the tournament should be expanded. Yeah. Why not? Again, let's go to 96. I mean, I'm serious about this. But yeah, there are those situations. Like if UCSD, stubs their toe in the Big West tournament, they ain't getting in as a at-large bid.
Somebody last year had 32 wins and didn't make it. I don't know if it was the University of Evansville Aces, or maybe it was Indiana State. Somebody had 32 wins, didn't win the tournament, their conference tournament, and got left out in the street.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking. Now they wound up going to the NIT, and I think got to the finals of the NIT at Madison Square Garden, which is kind of cool. But
there was also the one year the Aztecs won like
30-2, but that was
no. They won like 24, 26 games and didn't make it because they had a certain number of bad losses. So, I like the fact that they give guaranteed bids to these smaller conferences. I think that's wonderful. But he's right. I mean, sometimes you'll have like a 500 record in the Big Ten, and then they're in the tournament, and it's kind of meh.
Somebody last night in one of the mid-major conferences pulled off an upset and won their conference championship game. They're 16-17, and they're going to the tournament.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, we want to see that, but they just need to expand it. I mean, when they went from 64 to 68, it wasn't that big of a deal. We got these Dayton play-in games, but John Rothstein on Twitter is constantly saying, don't expand the tournament.
Yeah, but everybody else is saying it's going to 74, maybe by next year.
That's a weird 74?
Yeah.
Why the 74? Why wouldn't you go to 96?
I have no idea.
So there's going to be some more buys in that first round.
That's where we are. All right, let's go to social media. Got a ton of people here who've got some things to say that we don't necessarily agree with. That's okay.
All right. There's other guys that are in fans forum in the chat as well. Let's go here and let's talk a little bit about the Padres and reacting to Hacksaw here. And this is from Richard. He goes, "Will the NCAA?"
No,
excuse me. I got the wrong one here. Bear with me a moment.
I got so many topics on the table. John has so many people stacked up in the fans forum chat box.
Plus, I have the social media stuff. Yeah. Okay, this is the one from St. City Ace. He goes, wasn't there a post no more than a week ago where Lee said the Padres are ready, locked, and ready to go because they picked up Pivetta and they had their stars coming back a week later, and it sounds like the ship is sinking.
No. I was dealing with the acquisition of Pivetta and what it meant to the Padres in terms of firming up the front four in the rotation. This week, we're dealing with all these guys hitting 111. You got to cover all the stuff. Did I say they're going to the World Series? No, hit the reset button. I've never, ever said that. I just said Acquisition of the Red Sox pitcher solidifies the rotation. We still need answers in left field, catcher, and the bench bunch. We're 10 days out, and we still don't really have very many answers from that other group. You need to postmark this. We will do a baseball preview just before the start of the regular season. We're going to go division by division, and you're going to have the chance to hear what I have to say and then a chance to respond. But we haven't made those choices yet. That's coming probably the Thursday before the season starts.
Yeah, everyone's got receipts on things that you've said in the past, and but in this case, there's good weeks we're feeling encouraged. There's other weeks we're kind of a little bit glass half empty. And we've been in a glass half empty for a few weeks now with the hitting.
You're in a glass half empty since 24 shutout innings in a row against the Dodgers.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Which should have been a World Series appearance.
Yeah, I have no comeback for that.
Okay, we move on. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, let's go here. A little more baseball talk, and this is from Reynoso. He says, Pete Rose needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and Shoeless Joe should follow him. As for Bonds and Clemens, I thought that they were eligible. They just never got the votes.
Exactly. They were eligible, and the 10-year limit expired because of who they were. But again, you can't tell the history of baseball without Bonds and home runs and Clemens and wins and strikeouts and all that. You put an asterisk on the plaque, maybe you do it. But the Pete Rose thing is a little bit different because they bet on the games. And his memorabilia is in the Hall. And if you let him in, despite what he actually did, then what are you going to do with Shoeless Joe from 1919? Because, yeah, he took money. He didn't throw games. He hit in the 360s in that World Series, but he was dumb enough to take the money. It's a real tough call for the commissioner's office because they have to make the decision eligible list or continued ineligibility. If he's on the eligible list, they reinstate him, then he can be on the Hall of Fame ballot. And then the Hall of Fame people have to make their decision. Then the baseball writers who vote on these guys have to make their decision. So there's 3 different layers there have to occur.
Well, there's other guys that are in the Hall that have taken steroids. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing here.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Mark
but
McGwire didn't get in. Sammy Sosa didn't get in, and they were all in the Mitchell report and the Mitchell report.
Who was the first baseman for the Astros? It wasn't Biggio. It was one of the killer bees. What was the other guy? Bagwell. That guy looked like he was on the juice.
But looking and having his name show up in the report, it never did.
Yeah, I know. But there's guys that are in the Hall that have taken it. So it just sometimes the sports writers can just be obstinate. They're like, screw that guy.
In a lot of cases, some of it's deserved.
Yeah, it is, I guess. But, I agree with him. Rose, Shoeless Joe, let him in. And, yeah, if Bonds and Clemens didn't get elected, well, then they didn't get elected.
Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's talk hockey in San Diego. This is with Tacky Green. He goes, that's a cool little venue where the Gulls play. I think San Diego would be a great place for NHL hockey, better than Utah. Just my opinion.
Yeah, Salt Lake City has really embraced it. It's become a very good regional franchise. NHL is a hot commodity right now, but this is an old arena. I don't think you could survive in modern day NHL hockey without skyboxes and all that. I don't think you could survive with 12,000 seats, and that's what the old sports arena is. We're going to get a new venue somewhere down the road. They say upwards of 13,000, but even that to me is not big enough. And then where's the NHL going to expand to? There's a lot of talk about Quebec City, which has built that new Olympic arena there. And there's other places, they're talking Houston, which is vibrant in terms of population growth. And they're talking about trying to go back to Atlanta for a 3rd time. Tough call. The league is not ready to expand. The league might add 2 more. I just don't see the Kings and the Ducks voting to add a 3rd team here. And we don't have a facility. So we can't say, let's get hockey immediately because we don't have a place to play in.
Yeah, but San Diego's still bummed by losing the Chargers,
Sure.
the NFL team here. But, the sports arena, I'm just still shocked that it's still standing because they hosted the NCAA Final Four like in 75, I think it was. And back then, John Wooden said the place was a dump. We should never come back here again. Mm-hmm. And that was, holy crap, that was 50 years ago.
Well, it's been renovated, repainted. It's been fixed. It's a nice facility for an age facility, but it's not modern day NBA, NHL size.
No, not at all. So hopefully they build this new, but even that new arena may not even be up to NHL spec, right? They might only host like 12,000 rather than
13,000, but it's more of an entertainment center than it is going to be for Major League Sports because
Exactly.
I don't think we have access to get Major League Sports. sadly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd have to have an arena that got at least 20,000 to get an NHL team, right?
No, probably I'd say 15 to 17.
Okay. All right. Well, they're not there. That's not the plan.
Exactly. Okay, carry on.
Okay, carry on. Let's go here. This was an interesting topic from Mr. Madman. He says, it's not great, but if the World Series has to get canceled to get a salary cap salary floor, it's worth it. The sport is going to die without it.
Why would you ever damage a sport that is at the highest peak in terms of attendance, TV ratings, and gross revenue? Why would you do anything to stop that? So therefore, I'm not in favor of a lockout or shutdown. You sit there and you negotiate. I wrote a column on my website. You need to check my website. I write all this creative stuff every day. I wrote a column about Tony Clark. They got 2 years before the collective bargaining agreement expires. You go talk to the lawyers of the National Football League and find out how their CBA works in terms of revenue sharing and what's the best way to do it to include everybody. And that should also include a floor to spending. That's the way you solve it, is you come up with this creative stuff. You don't stand there and shout on the street corner all these negatives about the owners. You find a creative way in the next collective bargaining agreement to do it. And there's other things I got to do. John read my column and he kind of agreed. We need an international draft.
Yeah.
We obviously need to police the international draft because the federations are so different. And we still have cheating and corruption in the Caribbean. We got drug problems. You got the Mexican thing where they won't let them across the border. You got the Japanese situation, who's a free agent, who shouldn't be a free agent. You got China's federation. You got the Taiwan, the Korean federation. Each federation has such a different set of standards to operate by. That's complex to do. But that's what you got the next 2 years to do, is to come up with a creative way to make all this thing work, because you want to kill the golden cow. Right now, this thing is phenomenal in terms of popularity, attendance, TV ratings, revenue streams, and the pace of play has just invited more fans to come and enjoy a night at the ball yards. That's what I would do.
It's my golden cow. It's the golden goose, isn't it?
Yeah.
The golden calf that's biblical reference right there. Just to talk about this for a minute, obviously the threatening the World Series. We go back to the 1990s. They had the strike. That was the year that Gwynn almost hit 400 to get 394. And then baseball suffered from that. People were angry. And then, we had McGuire and Sosa in 1998 and the home run chase. And do you think that baseball really, the people in the front office, did they really know the juicing was going on? Were they just looking the other way?
They were looking the other way and people wouldn't address it. And then Kevin Towers, then general manager of the Padres, said, there's cheating in baseball. We need to do something about steroids. So he said that and he took a lot of crap. And then you had Donald Fear, the head of the union, standing on the street corner saying, you can't violate a player's privacy by drug testing them. And they fought that fight for years. And then they finally got drug testing because there was such an outcry from the public. And then that involved steroids, and then it elevated, and that involved HGH, and that elevated, and that involved testing for PEDs. So they've really cleaned this thing up a great deal. But it was a terrible fistfight from the first words from the late Kevin Towers through the post-Donald Fear era before the union finally got on board and said, okay, we're going to allow this for the good of the game.
Well, the game was pretty exciting when everyone was on the juice,
Yeah.
Obviously it distorts the game. Sometimes it makes you wonder, why not just let them take it? The baseball would be crazy. People's arms would literally be falling off.
They are.
Yeah. But are the drug rules across all the sports more or less consistent in your opinion? Or is there one league that really is harsh or looks the other way?
No, I don't think anybody looks the other way. It's the question is, the international venue makes it a lot more complicated now because the Caribbean has still got a problem with steroids and PEDs because that's an educational thing, in addition to a right versus wrong thing, in addition to a money thing. And you get people coming from all types of environments off the dirt farms that are ball players that are trying to get off the islands, and they'll do anything from a major league standpoint. And there's a lack of education too. They don't know. And they're dealing with corrupt agents that are delivering them and taking all their money. It's just really a messy situation globally for baseball to solve. It's not going to be solved in 15 days. I'll guarantee you that.
Hollywood stars are on the juice. I mean, you see, like, Sylvester Stallone.
We're talking baseball here.
Yeah.
Why are you taking us off on a tangent?
All right, let's keep moving. Let's go here to this is Talking Chargers with Seapolt. He goes, "Hey, Brandon Staley was initially loved by the players, but he was so receptive to their feedback, and look where it got them. Still riding with Harbaugh."
Oh, he's talking about the player vote last week that was released that all these players voted Jim Harbaugh as the 26th or 32nd coach in the league because they're tired of his speeches and that he wouldn't listen to the players, etc. Harbaugh's still a great coach. He has a good track record. He does wear people out along the way, and that's probably got something to do with the response. But we'll just have to see as this thing goes forward. Can a coach be flexible? You have to learn on the job. Staley didn't have a hell of a lot of great players, and he had a young rookie quarterback trying to learn on the job, and he was learning on the job, and I thought he failed miserably along the way. But we'll just see next, year or two of Harbaugh. I hope they give him more players because I don't quite think he's got as good a team right now as he had that was in the playoffs.
Well, Staley's bouncing around. Isn't he now working for Kellen Moore in New Orleans?
Just named defensive coordinator after got bounced by the Chargers, went to San Francisco. No, Frisco or the Rams? Frisco. Went to San Francisco.
But he was with the Rams before the Chargers.
Yeah. Went to San Francisco for 1 year as a, quote, defensive consultant for Shanahan. Got hired by Kellen Moore. That's odd because Staley was head coach. Kellen Moore was his offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Now Kellen Moore is head coach, and he's brought Staley back into the loop, and we'll see what Staley does.
I don't think either one of those guys shaves.
No.
They're both so young.
Not during the course of the regular season.
Kellen Moore always got a lot of crap as an offensive coordinator. I wonder how he's going to do.
We'll find out. I mean, he did well in Philadelphia with talent. He did well prior to he got here. Here was okay, but then he was in Dallas, and he did well statistically, and then he left. Mike McCarthy came on board. So interesting. You got to have players. You can be an X and O's guru and all that, but you got to have players too.
See, we're having a conversation at the same time. You're looking at your computer, probably trying to get an update on the Aztec game, right?
My battery went dead.
It just went dead. You could talk sports and read sports at the same time.
You should have seen me multitasking my ass the first 3 days of free agency in the NFL. I thought my head was going to fall off my shoulders.
I could picture it.
Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast.